Hey everybody, welcome to Undergroundopolis. Another exciting night here, man. I can't. It's another guest I can't believe agreed to come on. It's amazing what you'll do, what people will do if you just ask. It's like, it's wow. Jason Ringenberg from Jason and The Scorchers is my guest, and like he's a cowpunk pioneer. A lot of people refer to Jason and The Scorchers as the first cowpunk band, and I've been listening. They've done Farm Aid. They've played all over. He, you know, and we'll just bring him right on.
This is Jason.
Hey, man.
Oh, great.
Thank you so much for doing this, by the way.
Man, my pleasure. My pleasure.
It's like, I can't believe you're on here. Well, okay. Well, I've got a list of pretty generic questions right here, and you see me looking over this way. That's where my iPad is. It has the questions on it. So I'm not. It's not. I'm paying attention. I'm just looking at the questions here. But what was it that made you get into music? Did you see somebody like live, or did you go to a concert like, I want to do that?
Yeah, I think I was in my late high school years, and my older sister came back from college. I lived a pretty sheltered life on the farm. Didn't hear a lot of music really, and she brought home all these crazy Bob Dylan records, and that just sealed it for me.
Well, how did you first get into music? I mean, did you start playing guitar? Did you start singing or writing? Or
yeah, I wasn't particularly musical growing up. I just always loved music a lot. But once again, my sister had an acoustic guitar in the house, and I started messing around with it and learned a few chords, and then of course learned "Blowing in the Wind," and just took off from there, and just fell in love with performance.
Do you have a particular creative process when you write? Is there?
I think that every song is different. It seems to be, I don't know if this is a provable fact, but it seems to be the ones that come fastest with the most music and lyrics together tend to be the best. Not always, but they tend to be.
That's me too. Like the ones I write in just minutes are like, they seem to gain the most traction, which always surprises me when with some of my songs. Like I can't believe people like that song.
Yeah, that's kind of it. But there's plenty of exceptions too. Sometimes you work on a song for years before it gets right, and then it works.
Yep, I have those too, man. Do you have a? Well, let's see how I word this. You didn't just wake up one day probably and say, I'm gonna start cowpunk.
No. It's funny that I remember one of the first posters I had from a band in the Midwest called Shakespeare's Riot, and this was in the '70s, and we did. We were starting to hop up Johnny Cash songs and stuff, and one of our tags was Farmer Punk. That was what we called ourselves. So I guess that was the first sort of cowpunk, probably in the Midwest, I would imagine.
Well, I've seen here a while back. I watched a Blaine Cartwright video. You probably from 9 Pound Hammer and Nashville Pussy. You probably know who that is. And he's like, we wanted to be the Ramones and Jason and the Scorchers. Like he gave you a big shout out.
Great. Well, that's funny because we were, we want to kind of be the Ramones, so it all works out, big circle.
Well, I'm sure. Let's see. Do you have a favorite show that you played? I mean, you played Farm Aid, which is the White Lies Farm Aid video is one of my favorite videos ever.
Yeah, that's pretty smoking. Seeing Warner pacing back and forth on the stage while Jesse Jackson did his ramp-up speech is really quite incredible. Warner was like a caged animal wanting to get on that stage.
Is there a favorite show that you have? Can you narrow down one?
It's hard to say because I enjoy performance so much that
Can't tell it.
A lot of favorites, but I will say the '84 Marquee show in London was pretty happening. You know, we had guys from the Stones were there, and Elvis Costello, and all kinds of people like that, Nick Lowe, and Dave Edmunds, and all those kinds of folks were at that show. That was a favorite of mine. The Farm Aid show you mentioned was pretty happening. Some of the last shows I did last year on the Stand Tall tour solo were some of the most memorable I've done in a long time, because it was kind of finding a new identity for myself on stage. It was pretty cool.
I tell you, I'll let you, like, I was working at a cover band. I was like, I want to play White Lies. And we could never do it. And it's not really a difficult song, but we couldn't. It was hard to cover.
Well, the guitar part's hard to cover. It's deceptively difficult. It sounds easy, but it's a pretty hard part to cover. Perry wrote that guitar part. He wrote that.
Who did?
He did. Perry, the drummer.
Oh, wow.
Who also wrote the song. So, he pretty much told us what to play.
Oh, man. I love that song. I love Golden Ball and Chain. Of course, God Bless the Ramones. And I heard one the other day for the first time that I'd never heard before. I can't imagine and I'm trying to, what is this? Tuskegee Pride, yeah. Yeah. Such a great song, which like on the audio podcast, I'll probably edit part of that song into the podcast to make sure everybody hears how great of a song that is.
Thank you. Great.
Such a great song. Do you have a least favorite performance? I love this question.
There's plenty of those. I've done a lot of dud gigs too, as well as the good ones. But I have this very useful psychological mechanism that I think has allowed me to stay in the business for 40 years without ever having any hit songs. And that is, I can forget bad shows. I can, the shows that no one shows up at, or the sound system's really crummy, or they don't like you, or whatever. I can somehow forget those, and they don't stick in my mind. I'm very fortunate that happens, because there's plenty of those, I can tell you.
Well, would you prefer the studio or the stage?
A good question. And most of my life, the stage. But I really have enjoyed the studio experiences I've had this last couple of years. I kind of figured out how to work the studio better than I used to, I think.
You got any, you have a particular favorite song throughout the years that's really always stuck with you as a favorite to play?
Yeah, Harvest Moon from Fervor. I always love playing that one. No matter how many times I do it. It's one of the favorite sort of songs of ours from Scorchers fans. And I always love doing that one. Certainly doing God Bless the Ramones, I always love doing that one that you just played. I love that song. Play that song.
I do too. That's a very fun song. It's
a fun song to introduce too, because people really aren't expecting it. I tell a whole story about how I wrote that song when I was at the Sequoia National Park, and I was underneath this huge sequoia tree called the Colonel Charles Young tree, which is named after the first African American that had graduated from West Point, and no one is expecting me to sag into God Bless the Ramones, from that speech. So it's always a real shock. I love doing that.
Let's see. Lost my place. You have a cool touring story for us, or anything you'd like to share?
Well, I love to talk about my songs, especially, and I can go pretty deep in a lot of those songs.
Go ahead.
More about the God Bless the Ramones song that's based on a true story. I wrote that underneath the Charles Young tree, and Young was an incredible human being. Like I said, he was the first African American graduate of West Point. He was the first African American to be commissioned colonel in the United States Army. He was the first commandant of a national park. And when he took over Sequoia National Park, it was being overrun by these logging gangs who were taking these giant sequoia trees down illegally and selling these beautiful trees for a fortune. They were making a killing. And Young just, he's African American, confronting these white mobs of these hardcore, tough lumberjack guys who are also criminals, and they'd come into the park, and Young would just stand in the road, and he'd just sort of stand there in their way as they're coming in with their mules and their wagons, and there'd be 30 or 40 guys in these gangs, and he would just sort of plant his feet, and after they got close enough to hear him, he'd say, "Y'all need to stop and go back, or I'm going to have to arrest you." And they of course, would laugh at him. They'd yell at him. They called him the N-word, of course. And they said, "How are you going to stop us? There's 40 of us. There's only one of you." And he said, "Yeah, that's true. But which one of you is going to pull that gun first? Because whoever does, I'm going to put a bullet between your eyes." And this just freaked these guys out. They're basically thugs and bullies, but they would turn around and leave. And he was able to save so many of these great sequoia trees. Now, fast forward to my being underneath the Charles Young tree, and I'm thinking, who could I write a song about that would, be a hero of mine? And I thought back to 1982 when Jason and the Scorchers opened for the Ramones in Texas, a whole Texas tour. It was our first tour outside of the South and the Midwest that we'd ever done. The first time on big stages, and we were nowhere near ready to be doing this, honestly. But we got to Beaumont, Texas, with like $2 left, and just a little bit of gas in our tank. This old Econoline van. And we got to the gig, and there we were in this huge auditorium. It was 2,000 seat place. Jeff didn't have any bass strings. We didn't have a sound person to run our sound. We didn't know anything about nothing. And, we'd heard all these horror stories about how the Ramones were these tough guys from Brooklyn, from Queens. And they were the nicest, kindest people to these dumb hillbillies from Tennessee. They would just they let us go in their dressing room and eat their food because we didn't have any food. We were about half starved. And they let us have their beer, to drink out of their dressing room. They let their sound man mix our show. They told their light people to give us nice lights on the stage, and they didn't mess with us at all. Even Dee Dee Ramone even gave Jeff some bass strings, so he could have bass strings to play. So, that was the genesis of the song "God Bless the Ramones." It was from that experience of opening for the Ramones in Texas in 1982. Now, I will say that at the time, I wasn't quite sure how he got this gig. It sounded too good to be true. And when we got there, we kind of understood why. Not a lot of people really wanted to open for the Ramones in those days because, especially in Texas, they had this tradition among the audiences that the opening bands would get just bombarded with garbage. So we took the stage, and before we even hit a note, before the show started, they were just pelting us with all this garbage, this vile stuff. But instead of quitting, we just kind of started throwing the stuff back at them and yelling at them and calling them names and just taunting them and egging them on. And I think we actually gained fans in the end by doing that as opposed to backing off. And we still meet people to this day that say, "I saw you in Austin in 1982 and never forgot how you guys stood down 2,000 people just for me."
Yeah, you got to feed off that energy, even if it's bad energy.
Even if it's bad.
Yeah. Is there anybody that you would like to collaborate with that you haven't already? Probably. Could you think of somebody like that?
Well, we got to tour with Bob Dylan. Did a whole tour with him in '89, but I never got a chance to write a song with Bob Dylan. That would be just the ultimate for me. Yeah, I would say to do that would be pretty incredible.
If you could open a show for anyone that you haven't already, is there something?
That's a good question because we have opened for so many people. I forget sometimes. When I start listening to them, it sounds like I'm name dropping, but someone that I haven't opened for that I'd love to play shows with. Maybe, God, that's a hard question, really. I mean, some of the people we've opened for, Black Flag, the Circle Jerks, Bob Dylan, the Fabulous Thunderbirds, REM, U2, John Mellencamp, Little Richard. Golly, there's so many. I forget them all. But I think probably opening someone that I haven't opened for that I would have liked to, just to hear them, like being on tour with them. Because that's when you really get to know them, when you tour with them. When you just open one show, a lot of times you don't even have any dealings with them, But when you tour with them, yeah, you get to know them. Like I remember when we toured with Dylan, I was in the buffet line to get my dinner that night at the venue, the catered dinner. And I didn't know it, but right behind me, I hear this guy say, "Hey, Jason, man, get the barbecue. It's really good tonight." And it was freaking Bob Dylan telling me to eat the barbecue. So that was a big one. Let's just say, to answer your question, let's say Neil Young. That'd been a really cool opening. If you could do like a whole tour with Neil Young, that'd be really great to just kind of get to know him and hang out with him. That'd be cool.
When did your latest album, or is it is Rhinestone the latest album?
Rhinestone is the latest album. Yeah, it just came out about a month ago, and
okay, good.
I recorded it this last year and put it all together, and during the COVID lockdowns, and now it's out, and I'm having fun talking to you people right here on Undergroundopolis.
Was there any? I don't know if right now it's not a good time to tour, but is there anything coming up at all?
Yeah, my American tour. It's a 2-date American tour right now. Going to open the tour in celebrating the release of Rhinestone at my farm, right here on our farm in Bon Aqua, Tennessee, May 8th. It's an outdoor concert, so anybody can come, social distance, all that. Sit wherever they want, bring whatever they want to eat and drink, and you're going to hear me play music on my own farm. That's my favorite one coming up.
So how do you get tickets?
We're doing Eddie's Attic in Decatur, Georgia, near Atlanta. That's kind of the second leg of the tour. That's pretty much it right now.
How do you get tickets to the farm?
Just go on my website, and there's ways to get it. It's an early show. Starts at 6 p.m. And, if you want to sit on top of my chicken house and watch it, you're welcome to it.
Oh, I know how to glamp. We've got a glamper.
There you go.
No, yeah. Might have to hit that up, man. So what? I keep losing my place. I keep getting it reeled in here. You've performed all over the world. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Like Europe, where else?
Well, I shouldn't say all over the world. No, I haven't toured all over the world. It's a bit myopic of me. But
you've toured Antarctica. I mean,
never hit Antarctica. No, never hit Asia. But I've been to Australia a few times. Been to Europe more times than I can remember. I mean, I bet I've been there 70 or 80 times and done hundreds of shows in Europe, all over North America, of course. So yeah, I've hit a lot of the world, not all of it, but about half of it.
How do you get on a bill with Black Flag? How did Jason? It's bizarre in a way, but it's also really cool. It's like,
well, in the early days, Jason and the Scorchers we were a lot more punk rock than we are now. It became later. In the early days, we were a punk rock band. I mean, Jeff wore a mohawk, shaved head. Warner had crazy outfits on, and we could play punk rock clubs, and that's pretty much what we did. So yeah, I mean, I remember playing the 688 in Atlanta, Georgia, with opening for the Circle Jerks, and we went over great. The audience loved us. It was really cool. Early on. I think that was like February or March of 1982. So we could do that. We were. It was an interesting band in those early days, 81, 82, 83. The band one day, we would be playing a show in Nashville, and we'd have Bill Golden from the Oak Ridge Boys to come up and jam with us, And then 2 days later, we'd be in Atlanta, Georgia, opening for the Circle Jerks. So the band was just really strange that way. We'd have guests like, Steve, one night Rodney Crowell would be at our show, or Emmylou Harris, and then the next night, Steve Jones from the Sex Pistols would be there. The band drew this crazy mix of people. It was so exciting in those days.
You got anything else you'd like to plug in before we wrap this up?
No, just thank you for doing this, Rob, and good luck with this. With this, I think it's a really cool thing you have going. My new record is called Rhinestone. It's available on my website at jasonringenberg.com, or pretty much anywhere music is sold. So I hope to see you guys down the road, and thank you for listening.
Get your tickets to the farm. Where's the other place in Georgia? Where's that at?
Eddie's Attic. That's June 5th. And the farm show is May 8th.
Yeah.
May 8th.
June 5th close to my birthday.
It might be a good birthday.
It might be real. I've got so much. For sure. I've got so much pay time off saved up right now. My work. This is boring stuff. My work told me the other day, is like, you either need to start taking it or you need to start selling it. And I'm like, well, I don't want to sell any of it. So I'm going to. Once this stuff blows over, I'm going to get out and about a little.
I hear you. I think everybody in the world is thinking that.
Right. Will you make a soundbite for me for the show? Do you mind doing that?
Oh, sure.
This is Jason Ringenberg. You're tuned in to Undergroundopolis.
All right. Howdy, folks. This is Jason Ringenberg, and you are tuned in to Undergroundopolis. Listening to Rob Lyon right here.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We will sign off here. Thanks.
All right,
again.
Rob. Have a good night.
All right, man. Good night, everybody.
Bye-bye, kid. Bye-bye, folks.